In the end, Sisai was a hollowed-out doll, staggering onto a moonlit terrace. The wind rustled her brittle, straw-like hair, and when it lifted the hem of her dress, it revealed a body covered in meticulously crafted bruises. She murmured a tired old fairy tale. Once upon a time, there was a kind stepsister. The moment her father died, the evil women began to torment her. And just like in every fairy tale, the sister married the prince and lived happily ever after, while the wicked mother and daughter were tormented by fate and forgotten by the world. But did anyone ever ask why they hated that kind Cinderella so much? And speaking of Loina, there she was, the kind stepsister from the fairy tale, standing right before her. She ran over, her usual composure gone, her face a mask of a shock she would never normally show. "What are you talking about? Get down from there." "We can talk about anything, just come down." Sisai couldn't help but smile. How absurd this all was. People said they were a cursed pair, a mistake from the very beginning, thrown together as family by a cruel twist of fate. Count Wiswarts, a man with a 16-year-old daughter, had married a commoner with a 17-year-old daughter of her own. A few gossips spun it as the romance of the century, but most people couldn't stand the new wife's child. They treated the new young lady's arrival like an invasion, aiming all their hostility at Sisai, worried that she, with her stepfather's affection, would threaten the position of the count's true daughter, Loina. So they did everything they could to drill one thing into her head: you are worthless. A hopelessly flawed girl compared to the perfect Loina. No matter how hard Sisai tried, the gap between them was an unscalable wall. What was worse, no one was willing to teach her properly. Even the maids bullied her, cleverly hiding the unfairness of her starting point while constantly comparing her to Loina, torturing Sisai with a crushing sense of inferiority. They probably expected her to run to her room and cry in defeat. But they didn't know that a wild horse, when provoked, doesn't hide. It breeds hatred and jealousy, and it longs to steal the light for itself. So after her stepfather was lost at sea on a trading voyage, Sisai had her mother seize control of the Wiswarts estate. To vent her years of resentment, she locked Loina in a damp cellar and began to torture her without restraint. But what fairy tale would ever betray its hero? Loina was the protagonist of this story. So many people were waiting for Loina to soar again, to see her happy smile. Should I tell the part where, with the help of her sympathizers, she attended the royal ball, fell in love at first sight with the crown prince, and her life took off from there? Or the part where she mercifully saved us from prison after we were arrested for abusing the count's daughter? Loina called it a new opportunity, a chance for a fresh start. So she gently released my mother and me. But for everyone else, it was like opening the floodgates of revenge. The tragic ending was bound to repeat itself. So it's better to just end it here. End this cursed connection with the people who trampled me to protect her. And end my own life, which has been nothing but a clown's reckless rampage. My dear sister Loina, I only want to ask one thing. Did you really not know? People compared us, dragged me into the abyss. As the center of the family, how could you have been oblivious to the collective campaign happening all around you? And you would just watch me quietly, perhaps with a look in your eyes that said, "Why can't you even do this much?" Answer me, you knew, didn't you? Loina was silent for a moment before she spoke. Yes, but I thought everyone was like me. I thought it was all perfectly normal. But you could never do it, so I couldn't understand. But that's all in the past. We can start over, just come down. Sisai laughed, just as she thought. Then, in a voice softer than ever before, she said, "Loina, I truly hate you. I'm going to make you suffer for my death for the rest of your life. In the happy life you're about to begin, my shadow will follow you everywhere." As Loina's blood-curdling scream tore through the night, Sisai fell like a bird with broken wings, down from the moon-drenched terrace. When she opened her eyes again, she was back on the day they first met. Sunlight streamed in, and Loina stood in its glow, asking innocently, "Are we going to be a family now?" But this time the deck was being reshuffled. Sisai's eyes opened to the pouring sunlight. Her nails still long and sharp like a witch's, and the faint ache of old wounds were proof she was still alive. A knock came at the door, but before she could answer, it was pushed open. The maid didn't even bother with a greeting, as she walked straight to the window and threw open the curtains. The Marie from her past life had been just like this, arrogant and cold, never a kind word while serving her mistress, always reluctant to follow any instruction. In her memory, Marie had only smiled happily once. "I knew you'd get kicked out eventually. She even asked what the foam in her wash water was. I told her it was lavender oil, good for her skin, and she actually believed me and used it with a smile. She had no idea it was my spit. In her past life, before she began her formal etiquette lessons, her personal maid, Marie, had completely neglected her. But Chisai, naive and ignorant at the time, hadn't realized how unfairly she was being treated. After all, how could a commoner know about the pampered lives of the nobility? So she had tolerated the staff's insolence. Now she saw through it all. "Marie," she called out in a calm tone, "you don't look well." Marie tilted her head in confusion. "I don't. I feel perfectly fine." "Your throat seems to be bothering you." "No, it's fine." Chisai smiled slightly and beckoned Marie closer. The maid walked over impatiently, only to have Chisai grab a fistful of her hair and pull her face close. "I thought you didn't greet me because you had a sore throat." Only after Marie pleaded for mercy did Chisai let go. "Remember this, Marie. Next time you enter, you will greet me properly. Now go and fetch my wash water." Looking at the icy water in the brass basin, mixed with hyacinths that would irritate the skin, Cece let out a soft, mocking laugh. Noble women use silver basins filled with warm water, scented with rosewater or herbs. Without hesitation, she tipped the brass basin onto the floor. "Get me another one." However, the 4 basins of water Marie brought back were no different from the first. "My lady, if you're unhappy with something, please just tell me. Why are you treating me like this?" Sissy looked down at her and smiled. "You know exactly why." The Marie of the past had wasted her time on such petty schemes. When her stepfather had bought out entire shops of gowns and jewels for her, Marie had deliberately filled her wardrobe with the oddest clothes. Then she and the other maids fanned the flames, tricking her into wearing a mismatched, clownish outfit on her very first morning as a member of the Count's family, a day that should have been an important introduction. She vaguely remembered her stepfather's indescribable expression when she walked into the dining room, and her mother bowing her head in shame. But the highlight was Lowena asking innocently, "Is it hard to get dressed?" That was the day it all started. The day people began comparing her to Lowena, calling her the stupid young lady who couldn't even dress herself. "But what if I show up perfectly dressed this time?" Cissy thought. "Oh dear, I'm going to be late for breakfast. Now who should I blame for that? What would father say if he found out about this? So you'd better get it right. This is your last chance. Understand?" Marie's face went pale. She nodded and scrambled to get things in order. Before long, she returned, bowing respectfully. "My lady, I've brought your wash water." A real morning, one she had never experienced before, was about to begin. As she approached the dining room, the servants who had been bad-mouthing the new young lady fell silent. The butler's eyes widened in shock. "Welcome home, my lady." The great ornate doors swung open. The servants couldn't believe it. Was this really the new young lady? They'd heard she was a country bumpkin. The moment she saw her mother, Cissy broke into a radiant smile. "Good morning, Mother," she said, trotting over to kiss her cheek. Cissy had always loved her mother, and her stepfather, Count Wiswarts, too. Perhaps out of nervousness, his lips trembled slightly. He stood ramrod straight, his large frame imposing, trying his best to show his stepdaughter proper courtesy. The old Cissy had been so intimidated by his presence that she couldn't even manage a proper greeting, cowering behind her mother. Little did she know, he was just as nervous, unsure how to approach her. When her stepfather had forced a smile to break the tension, she had actually screamed. How incredibly foolish. She curtsied with all the grace she could muster, and then kissed his stubbled cheek. "Did you sleep well, father?" In the past, Lowena had been adored for her charming way of speaking and gentle manners. Why couldn't she do the same? Her stepfather paused, clearly taken aback, before a relieved smile spread across his face. "I did. And you? Did you sleep well? Is everything to your comfort?" Cissy curtsied again. "Yes, everything is wonderful." Then she returned to her seat. "I'm Lowena, sister." Cissy smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "You can just call me Cissy." She insisted on the stiff formality to create distance. Besides, they were only a year apart. She swallowed the rest of the sentence before it could escape. "I will never be your sister." It was better to just use her name like a stranger. Lowena's cheeks flushed, and she looked at Cissy with a grateful expression. "As you wish." When Cissy displayed impeccable table manners, her stepfather watched her with an incredulous gaze. Unlike her mother, who was a little clumsy when choosing her silverware, Sisai navigated the meal perfectly without any guidance. "Where did you learn such etiquette?" she answered without batting an eye. "I learned it from books. Did I do something wrong?" "You can read. Yes, I love to read." Her mother asked in surprise. "Sisai, when did you learn to read?" She deliberately put on a sad expression and bowed her head. "I'm sorry for not telling you, Mother. I taught myself in secret. I didn't want you to worry or struggle on my account." Her stepfather was intrigued. "So thoughtful for one so young. How well can you read? I can read most common books unless they are rare editions with ancient text." Her stepfather's eyes were wide with shock, as if he were looking at a prodigy. To learn to read and comprehend books on one's own, without a tutor, was no small feat. But she couldn't exactly tell them she'd learned it all in her previous life, could she? Better to let them draw their own conclusions. "That's incredible. How would you like to begin formal lessons?" Sisai agreed with a bright smile. Just then, Loena chimed in cheerfully. "I can teach you." Sisai fought back a wave of nausea and managed a gentle refusal. "Thank you for the kind offer, but may I decline?" "Why?" Smiling at Loena's disappointed face, she said, "Because it would be difficult for both of us." Loena quickly retorted, "I don't think so." "Loena, I am telling you no." A flicker of panic crossed Loena's face. When had she ever been refused so directly? "I really want to help you, Sisai. Don't you trust me?" "It's not that. I'm just trying to prevent what might happen. We're starting from different places. And if we study together, it will naturally disrupt the pace. When you see me struggling to be as perfect as you might feel pity at first. But soon you'll grow tired of my slowness, and perhaps even get angry. Then people will blame me, saying, 'That thoughtless stepsister is upsetting the young lady.' I don't think I could bear being treated like that." As soon as she finished, her mother let out a gasp that was almost a sigh, while her stepfather's expression grew stern. "Who would dare say such a thing? Don't imagine such nonsense." Sissy replied, "It's not my imagination. You only need to look at the attitude of the maid who serves me. The ones who don't even greet me, the cold basin of water I was given this morning. It all tells me one thing. The people in this house do not welcome me." "Is that true?" "Yes, I swear to God." Her stepfather shot up from his chair, slamming his hand on the table. "Margot!" he bellowed toward the door. "Where is the head maid?" Her mother's face was pale, unable to imagine the insults her daughter had endured. Loena, however, couldn't believe it. "Do you think I'm lying? That's not what I meant." Loena was trying to defend Margot, who had been her nanny since childhood, a woman who was like a mother to her. Before the previous countess died, she had begged the count not to dismiss Margot. But the story of how a servant had tampered with a teacup, causing the family to lose their 8-month unborn son, had already spread through the city. The count had felt powerless, until his wife said she needed someone to brush Loena's hair, someone who could patiently comb that beautiful, long hair day after day. It was a small act of love she could only entrust to Margot. The count devised a punishment that would quell the gossip and protect Margot. He demoted her from head of the household staff to head of the maids. But Margot's kindness was reserved for Loena alone. For Sisai and her mother, she was a nightmare. The sly old fox directed the other maids to bully them relentlessly, using regional dialects and coded language to slander them openly. She disrupted the order of the household and even organized events in the countess's name only to sabotage them, leaving everything in chaos. Margot arrived in the hall faster than expected. "Insults? I'm afraid I haven't heard of any such thing. The lady of this house is made to wash her face with cold water from a filthy brass basin? You assigned a maid to the count's daughter who doesn't even know basic protocol. Is this not a sign of your contempt for me?" Her stepfather's roar made Margot's face drain of color. Margot had never dreamed she would be reprimanded for something like this. She was just a lowly commoner. How would she know the specifics of a noble lady's wash water? Margot had been certain that as long as everyone kept quiet, no one would ever find out. Just then, Loena stood up to defend her. "Father, there must be some misunderstanding. She has always managed the maids diligently and has never made a mistake." Sisai immediately chimed in, agreeing with Loena. "I agree. How could such a capable head maid assign such a thoughtless servant to me by mistake?" Her stepfather's gaze turned to ice. Loena panicked. The head maid has many responsibilities. How can she oversee every little thing? It must have been an oversight. It was a plausible excuse, and her stepfather, who seemed to want to avoid hurting anyone, looked conflicted. How pathetic. The moment Lowena took a side, the scales tipped in her favor. Sisai lowered her voice. Perhaps I am being too sensitive, but it does hurt a little. I was so looking forward to meeting the family and the staff I would be living with. But to the head maid, a task like assigning my servant must not have seemed important at all. At that, her mother burst into tears. You must have been so hurt. How could anything concerning you not be important? I'm fine, mother. Her stepfather spoke, his voice heavy with regret. This is my fault. I never imagined you and Sisai would be hurt like this. Please forgive me. Don't cry anymore, my dear. It breaks my heart to see your beautiful face stained with tears. He went to them and wrapped his arms around them both. Sisai feigned remorse. It seems this is all my fault for speaking out of turn. Lowena only offered to help me. How did things turn out like this? I should have just kept my mouth shut. You did the right thing. From now on, if anything like this happens again, you must not hide it. You must tell me immediately. I swear, in this house, no one will be allowed to disrespect you, not even Lowena. Do you understand? Her stepfather's words made Margot's expression freeze. Sisai smiled faintly. Her stepfather's affection was already stronger than it had been in her previous life. He had just sent a clear warning to everyone, letting them know exactly where his loyalties lay. Sisai, I hope you can clear up this misunderstanding about Margot. Lowena, I respect your opinion, and there's no need to worry too much. Hearing this, Lowena beamed, seeming not to take her father's declaration too seriously. Based on past experience, this was just a front to cover up for having defended Margot. If you peeled back the mask, you wouldn't find a trace of guilt on that face. Sisai, of course, couldn't let this opportunity slip by. Yes, Lowena, instead of teaching me my studies, how about you help me with this? I'll do anything you ask, then lend me one of your maids. It would help lighten the head maid's burden so she won't make any more mistakes. I'm sure one of your current maids would be more than capable. What do you think? Lowena froze, unable to process the request. She was intensely possessive of her things, and that possessiveness made no distinction between people and objects. The maid in question was one of her prized possessions, not to be given away. Her face was a mask of gentle consideration, but her mind was racing. But this was only temporary. Soon she would resort to her usual tactic, crying her way out of it. Lowena had very little control over her tears. They flowed whenever she felt hurt, sad, or wronged. They also flowed when she wanted to justify her own actions. So, no matter what absurd situation she created, everyone would forgive Lowena. In fact, they would end up feeling sorry and cursing whoever had made her cry. Because she was like a lily bud covered in morning dew, and the tears that fell from her long, trembling lashes were like jewels. When she cried, she was an angel. This time was no different. Everyone turned to look at Sisai. Her stepfather looked troubled, her mother confused, and the hostility in Margot's eyes deepened. The maids began to whisper, "She gets one little victory and already she's forgotten her place." She kept her voice steady. "Did I ask for something unreasonable?" As if on cue, Lowena started sobbing, repeating the words, "I'm sorry." Sissy blinked slowly as if she genuinely didn't know what she'd done wrong. "I'm the one who should be sorry. I don't actually know why you're crying, so I don't know how to comfort you." When Lowena choked out, "I just hate myself for being like this," Sisai pressed harder. "That doesn't help me understand. Could you explain in detail? That way I can avoid making the same mistake again." Sisai's own heart began to pound. Lowena's second weapon was about to make its appearance. "It's not an unreasonable request. My maids would certainly take good care of you. I don't know why I'm so upset. I'm sorry, Sisai. It's not that I don't want to give them to you, Lowena's self-blame had a way of twisting gentle persuasion into oppressive verbal abuse. But people couldn't see through it. Anyone who didn't accommodate her was branded the most heartless person in the world. Sisai hid her clenched fists, veins bulging under her skirt, and smiled faintly. "If you're this upset, then never mind, Lowena. You don't have to agree to my request." "It's all right, just please stop crying. You'll ruin your beautiful face." Lowena stopped crying abruptly, flustered. "I didn't say I wouldn't give her to you." "Lowena, you don't have to force yourself. How could I let a small request like this upset you so much? From now on, I'll consider your feelings first." She looked at Lowena calmly, her eyes saying everything. "See? I'm not going to throw a tantrum like a child, but I will use the most pitiful tone possible and pretend to be understanding of your shortcomings. That way, you'll be the one who feels guilty. I just hope no one gets the wrong idea. She held Lowena's gaze, her expression now conveying, "Do you see? I don't resent you at all. In fact, I'm being considerate of your weakness." What could make Lowena more uncomfortable than the unspoken accusation, "You've put me in a difficult position"? Lowena stammered, "The wrong idea? Who in the world would misunderstand you?" The old Sisai would have been sure of her victory by now and would have brutally cornered her. But with the experience of her past life, she knew that pressing the issue now would be digging her own grave. Because no matter how twisted the process, the outcome always favored Lowena. It always had. So rather than stubbornly fighting for a win, it was better to retreat at the right moment. "But Lowena, ever since you started crying, everyone has been looking so grim. Is that just my imagination too? In any case, let's just drop it. It's only making the atmosphere worse." Sisai stood up abruptly. "Excuse me, please allow me to take my leave." As if she couldn't stand it a moment longer, she quickly walked out of the dining room. Later, she learned from her mother that after she left, her stepfather had suspended the headmaid for 3 days. Margot, who had been acting as the lady of the house, was held accountable, a move that sent shockwaves through the entire staff. The maids who had gathered to torment a stupid country girl would now have to reconsider their attitudes. During that time, the butler disciplined the servants who had been disrespectful. And just as Sisai had hoped, Lowena received a stern lecture, accused of being willful, making assumptions, secretly insulting her recuperating sister, and making empty promises. In the end, she was ordered to send one of her maids to serve Sisai. Her stepfather had kept his promise. Not even Lowena could be disrespectful to Sisai. After leaving the dining room, Sisai went to the garden. She'd been so busy teaching Maria a lesson this morning that she hadn't had time to tend to her wound. As she was about to bend down to look at it, she caught sight of someone out of the corner of her eye. The person held out a handkerchief. "Use this to wrap your wound." In this house, she didn't think anyone cared about her. Who could it be? The moment she saw his face, Sisai was flooded with memories of her cruel past life. Llewellyn von Halberd, the man she had tried so hard to win but could never have. Back then, Sisai thought she could have anything she wanted. "Please have Sir Halberd protect me. I want him. Can I have him?" She thought her stepfather would grant her wish this time too, but he had looked troubled. Lowena's eyes were filled with tears, and her mother was even humiliated by others because of her selfish desire. Let's talk about this another time. But the young Sisai, lost in her first crush, couldn't understand their hesitation. She had no idea why they were looking at her that way. Her stepfather had said, "Sir Halberd is Lowena's personal knight. Can't you just get Lowena a new one? Sir Halberd is different from the other knights. It would be better for you to choose someone else." "I only want him." Her stepfather finally lost his patience. "Have you not yet realized you are a member of this family? Stop being so childish." She had trembled under his angry gaze. No one had told her what a noble and honorable knight he was. The answer was simple, because someone like her had no right to covet the sword of the Count's household. Doubt and anxiety consumed her. She thought that if she could just convince Lowena, everything would go back to normal. Lowena agreed to give him to her, then turned around and went to Halberd, crying. "It breaks my heart to think we can't be together anymore. Could you please go and protect my sister, who is so much more of a lady than I am? Please?" Of course, Halberd had refused. "I will only protect Lady Lowena. My sword is sworn to this family and to Lady Lowena." Sisai had choked back sobs. "But I'm part of the Wisworts family, too. Why won't you listen to Lowena? Her ladyship made a request, not an order. So if Lowena ordered you, you would listen?" "That will not happen, even if it means my sword is broken. So I hope we do not have to meet over this matter again." Lowena knew better than anyone that he would never choose Sisai. Everyone compared them, everyone laughed at her. She began to feel jealous, and she realized that everyone else's kindness toward her was just an obligation. She would never be truly loved here. When she saw this clearly, only one thought remained in her mind: if she could become better than Lowena, would those green eyes look at her instead? Whenever their eyes met, her vision would blur, her cheeks would burn, and her breath would catch in her throat. She felt happy even when he was only speaking to her because he had to. "Lady Sisai, I hope you will stop troubling Lady Lowena. Every time she sees me, she secretly wipes away her tears and murmurs with red-rimmed eyes that I should have brought her to the Viscount after all." Now, if you'll excuse me. Sisai had scrambled to her feet so quickly that she burned her palm. In that instant, all the sounds of laughter and ridicule flooded her ears. If that monster disappeared, there would be nothing left to make Lady Rowena sad. The brand no longer hurt. In its place was a towering inferno of hatred. Fine, if that's what you want, I'll gladly be the monster. The accumulated grief and despair of all those years created the monster of House Wiswarts. Thank you for your kindness. I'll have it washed and returned to you later. That's not necessary. Sisai flinched but quickly forced a natural smile. I hope you can forget what you just saw, please. Halberd nodded. He seemed about to say something else. But Sisai had already turned and walked away, ignoring him. Once she was a safe distance away, she let go of the handkerchief she had been clutching. She couldn't keep licking her wounds. There was a long road ahead. So please, don't you dare soften this heart I've worked so hard to harden. When she reached her room, she was back to being the wicked woman she needed to be. Marie, who had already heard the news, was on her knees, trembling and begging for forgiveness. Sisai glanced back with a smile. Still can't manage a proper greeting? Marie pleaded desperately. She would rather die than be demoted to a low-level maid, a world away from serving the young lady personally. Poor Marie, it seems you've heard the news. Sisai walked over to Marie and kicked her to the ground. Who delivered this wonderful news to you? Marie scrambled backward in terror. Don't make me ask you again. Through sobs, Marie confessed. It was Janel, Lady Rowena's maid. I see, so you two are close. After getting her answer, Sisai told her to maintain that close relationship. Then, with a slight smile, she stroked Marie's cheek. Now, let's get down to business. I've kept your little secrets for you. The hyacinths in the water, even the spitting. Are you going to continue to disappoint me? On the verge of a breakdown, Marie swore, I'll never betray you, my lady. I'll never make that mistake again. Does that mean you're willing to do anything for me? Sisai's fingers closed around the girl's neck, slowly, deliberately, making her feel the maximum amount of fear. Now be quiet. Poor Marie forgot how to breathe. Go to Margot right now. Tell her that stupid young lady forgave me, then beg her for another chance. Promise her that you won't fail again. Marie nodded frantically and fled. A moment later, Celia entered the room. Hearing the name, Sisai burst into laughter. Well then, let's have a chat, our way. In her past life, after Rowena became the crown princess, she had stripped Sisai and her mother of their noble status and banished them to an estate on the outskirts of the capital. Under Celia's management, Sisai was forced to live in a cold, damp cellar, sleeping on a mite-infested cot, constantly afraid of being bitten by rats. Although Rowena sent a doctor, her mother's illness never improved. It was a struggle to even breathe fresh air. They weren't allowed to walk in front of the mansion. Instead, a carriage would take them to a public square outside the estate. There, people who recognized the wicked women would throw stones at them. Sisai sank into thought. Were they really acting out of a sense of justice? Or did they just need a villain to stone? The latter seemed more likely. Still, she tried to endure it because she didn't know those people. But once the staff confirmed that Rowena didn't care what happened there, they stopped pretending and showed their true malice. Celia, unsatisfied with Sisai's passive acceptance of the abuse, started serving her only porridge mixed with rancid lard. If she refused to eat, she was punished, locked in a wooden box for a full day. The more Sisai pleaded, the more Celia reveled in it. Sisai could only beg her to give her mother normal food, never knowing that her mother had already been thrown out of the estate. Did Mother really abandon her daughter and run away? She'll probably be eaten by wild animals on the road anyway. Sisai never saw her mother again after that. Marie, who had just returned, froze at the sight. You're back sooner than I expected. Sisai shifted slightly. Good work, Marie. Now put Celia in there. Marie was aghast. Good heavens, my lady, what are you doing? Sisai told her an interesting story. Marie, although forgiven by her lady, was still afraid of being kicked out of the Count's household. Thinking she should grab what she could before then, she stole this ring while her lady was out of the room. Celia, who happened to witness this, was about to report you. In a panic, you covered Celia's mouth, but accidentally knocked over a candlestick. Just then, I returned to the room and screamed. Marie was still hesitant. How can I frame her with a false story? Calm down, Marie. There's a better option. The young lady, so moved by your promise to do anything for her, gives you a ring as a gift. How does that story sound? Marie was tempted. Are you really giving me this ring? It's all up to you. Now, I'll start screaming in 5 seconds. Sisai bet she wouldn't. At the last second, Marie blurted out, I'll do it. I'll lock Celia in the cup, sorry. A wise choice, Marie. Afterward, Sisai knocked on her mother's door, surprised to find Lowena there as well. Sisai, I'm so sorry about before. She feigned indifference. Celia is one of your favorite maids, isn't she? Are you sure you're okay with giving her to me? Lowena lowered her head, looking melancholy. I'm fine. But you still don't look well. Should I send her back to you? No, it's fine. I'm really okay. Then stop making that face. With that lingering, regretful expression, I honestly can't tell what you really mean. Lowena raised a hand to her cheek and, though it looked a bit unnatural, tried to force a smile. There, just like that. Smile happily. Now I can finally relax. The tense atmosphere lingered, and her mother's face grew pale. But her mother still seemed uneasy. Sisai, now that you are a member of the Count's family, you must think carefully before you speak. I'm sorry, Mother, you're right. Lowena, if I've upset you, I hope you can understand. It's all right, I understand. You can be a bit clumsy after all. Sisai reached out and intertwined her fingers with Lowena's. So, even if I make mistakes in the future, you'll always understand, right? Because I'm clumsy. Of course. Don't make things too difficult for Lowena. Sisai nodded with a deliberately cheerful voice. Of course not. We're family, after all. At the word family, Lowena's face flushed. I'm afraid I have to go. My literature tutor is coming. Can I come and visit often? Mother? Her mother was deeply moved. She forgot her composure, shot up from her seat, and ran to hug Lowena, tears streaming down her face. Of course, my child. You can come anytime. Thank you for calling me Mother. Watching this comical scene, Sisai almost burst out laughing, but managed to hold it in. She stood up and joined their hug. I'm so glad we can be a family. Lowena's face was half covered in tears. I'm so happy to be your daughter. The servants were so moved they were crying. Damn it, she thought. I guess I'll have to let my good reputation start with my own family. Her mother happily kissed Lowena's cheek. Watching them, Sisai felt a pang of bitterness. She really seems to like being called Mother. She can't kiss her enough. It feels like something's been stolen from me. After seeing Lowena off, her mother invited her for a walk in the garden. Hearing her mother use her childhood nickname, Sisai ran to her side and linked arms with her. Her mother gently stroked her hair. My daughter is the cutest. Once they were in the courtyard, her mother asked tentatively, You don't like Lowena, do you? Why would you think that? We were just getting along so well. Perhaps I'm just being sensitive. It just feels like you're hostile toward her. If I've made you worry, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful in the future. Her mother sighed. I appreciate that, but for some reason, I feel like you've changed. Isn't that a good thing? Perhaps. In any case, you must promise me you'll get along with Lowena from now on. She had no intention of keeping that promise, but she agreed readily. My dearest mother, I would weave any lie for your happiness. As they were heading back to her room, she asked casually, Have you gotten the household keys from Lowena yet? Oh, I heard they were supposed to be given to you directly. Since they symbolize your status as the true mistress of the house, I assume she'll give them to you soon. Lowena, as if afraid of losing her power, still hadn't handed over the keys. The longer she delayed, the more disappointed her mother would become with her. I hope you don't become a shield to protect Lowena. Her mother admitted with a troubled expression that she hadn't received them yet. Of course, if Lowena truly saw you as her mother, she would have given them to you by now. A little push like this shouldn't be a problem, right? Meanwhile, Halberd woke from a nightmare. The knight in training who assisted him, Belle, shared a piece of gossip. I heard the new young lady made Lady Lowena cry. Halberd told him, Don't believe rumors. You'd be better off polishing a sword than wasting time on gossip. After Belle left, Halberd couldn't help but think of what he had seen of Lady Sisai that day. Her hands trembled with fear in a new environment. Her figure stooped as she quietly sobbed from the malice of others. She had several servants, yet not one of them had noticed the wound on her foot. Telling her she didn't have to return the handkerchief had been an impulsive act. This unusual sentiment was irrational, but every beautiful thing he had ever seen was fragile. Was that why? Was that why he was so worried about that girl? I will never wake up. Until that man kissed her cheek in front of everyone, then vanished. The fleeting warmth instantly froze, turning into a chilling mockery. Sisai was about to leave when she felt a sharp gaze on her back. She was certain it belonged to Theodore Vitrace. Before she left, she glanced back in the direction of that intense stare. She gave a meaningful smile and mouthed the words, "See you next time." A faint laugh seemed to drift on the wind. She wondered if he had read her lips. When she returned to the estate, it was dinner time. Marie reported that Celia had regained consciousness and was begging for mercy. Sisai ordered her to have the girl washed, fed, and her wounds bandaged. And clean out the kapsari, too. Marie let out a sigh of relief. "So you've forgiven Celia?" At that, Sisai laughed. "Did you just say forgive? Celia only needs to be broken." If the head maid was the mastermind, Celia was her loyal dog. In her past life, she had run around helping Lowena escape to attend the royal ball. She had followed the crown prince's orders and thrown Sisai and her mother in prison. She had been so fiercely loyal. Would she really betray Lowena so easily? "Marie, hurry up!" "Before dawn, put Celia back in the kapsari. Keep her there until she is completely subservient to me. Until all of Lowena's people are mine. Until Lowena has no one left by her side. Lowena, come down to hell with me. Whoever brought me back to this time will one day regret their choice. Because I am going to become the perfect villain." During dinner, Lowena's mouth hardly stopped moving as she tried to engage her sister in conversation. Everything she talked about was so complex that the old Sisai would never have understood it without her past life's desperate studies. But because Sisai already knew all of it, she could handle the conversation with ease. If she had failed to respond, Lowena would surely have put on that patronizingly understanding expression and said, "I'm sorry, you probably don't understand this." The thought of it was infuriating. She had slept less than 4 hours a night. The girl who hadn't known where to begin had pored over books and theories one by one. To perfect her elegant pronunciation, she had kept a pearl in her mouth all day until her teeth chipped. She had practiced dancing until the calluses on her heels were thick, only to have them wear away and reform again and again. She had poured her heart and soul into that twisted life, believing that one day she would escape Lowena's shadow and be recognized as a whole person. At a charity event in her past life, the head maid Margot had deliberately replaced the crimson roses with withered lilies, taken down the sunshade, and used terrible decorations, completely ruining her mother's arrangements. The noblewomen who attended found fault with everything. The food is greasy. The desserts are too garish. Asking us to wear white gowns is just baffling. Her low birth really shows. She's simply not capable of hosting a society event. Just then, some children came forward with flower wreaths they had made to show their gratitude. The noblewomen reluctantly put them on. I didn't expect to actually have to meet the children. While the sentiment is nice, we are of different classes. There's no need to have us in the same place. Seeing this, the children's spirits fell. But we still have to give one to that lady, right? She's scary. She looks like a ghost. The woman's gaze shifted to them. The boy instinctively flinched. They say the young lady at the count's house with nails like a witch is very mean. As she walked closer, the boy froze in terror. We're lowly. Even our parents abandoned us. No one will ever like us. With that thought in his head, the woman lifted his chin. Are you going to put it on my head or not? If you don't, I'll eat you. Have you had any strawberries? The children were surprised and incredulous. Can we really have some? You can have meat too. We don't have to eat vegetable soup today. Quick, thank the lady. Sisai pointed to her mother. Save your thanks for the most beautiful lady over there. And don't eat too much at once. You can take some with you, all right? A gasp came from a distance. My goodness, those are gloves embroidered with the Count's crest. Doesn't that mean whoever wears them is under the Count's protection? Of all the donations, this must be the most meaningful gift. It's made with such fine thread, a very unique technique. How could it be so delicate? And to make dozens of pairs so that every child could have one, it must have taken so much effort. At that time, Sisai had thought that if she just tried hard enough, maybe someone would understand her. Until she heard those prejudiced words, Lady Lowena is so kind. Sisai stepped forward to explain. I'm the one who embroidered these gloves. The entire room fell silent. A second later, a voice full of doubt asked, Did Lady Sisai really make them? Before she could answer, Lowena appeared. Yes, this is my sister's work. Although this is the first time I'm seeing it, I know how much effort my sister put into today. Sister, when did you get so good? It's amazing. Sisai politely thanked her, but the person pressed on. So when did you get so good? Suddenly, as if remembering something, she added, "Ah, you've been visiting Mrs. Klee frequently these past few weeks. Did you get her help?" Murmurs spread through the room. Mrs. Klee, the embroidery genius from the East? Of course, if it was her, she could certainly complete such an outstanding piece. So that's the story behind it. Before Sisai could clarify, everyone's attention was drawn to another piece. Luina introduced it. "I hope this work, which embodies the hearts of many, can be hung on the walls of the convent to bring dreams and comfort to the children." It was embroidered with the crests of various noble families, and the room erupted in praise. "This is a work that symbolizes their noble duty and honor. To place such an elegant piece in a humble environment is such a profound blessing for these children. This is the greatest gift of all." Lady Luina must have experienced such a deep spiritual connection to complete this work. As soon as they finished, Luina's voice caught with a sob. "To be honest, I've never known a mother's warmth either. I understand these children's feelings better than anyone." The noble women joined in with their own dramatic displays. "It's so strange, Luina. You already have everything. What else is there for you to take from me? It shouldn't be like this, so why am I sinking into such a bottomless despair?" Luina was still chattering away, oblivious to the fact that the conversation was about to die. Then her mother cleared her throat, snapping Sisai back to the present. The endless talk had worn her out. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "Luina, you are truly knowledgeable and insightful. It should be a pleasure to converse with you like this, but I think it's time to stop. My throat is nearly raw from praising your wisdom." "Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. I was only thinking of myself. It must be hard to understand everything, isn't it?" Sisai didn't feel the slightest bit of comfort. Instead, she put on a smile and shook her head. "Not at all. I'm sure you enjoyed it as much as I did. But I do hope you'll focus a little more on the delicious food in front of you, otherwise you'll be hungry later." "Do you understand what I mean?" She had phrased, "So shut up and eat, you brat," as politely as she possibly could. The day before, her stepfather had announced that his sister was coming to visit. At the news, her mother's face had gone deathly pale. The Marquise of Ravelier was a titan of high society, the role model for every young debutante. When her mother had first visited her, the Marquise hadn't said a word. She had made her mother stand in the middle of the hall while she and her ladies-in-waiting sat around her, observing. The Marquise herself sat like a queen, scrutinizing her as if she were unworthy of a conversation, or perhaps as if she didn't exist at all, applying pressure with her silence alone. Just as her mother was about to suffocate from the tension, she had finally uttered a single sentence. "What a waste of time. You are as mediocre as I expected." The humiliation was enough to shatter a woman's dignity. Just then, Sisai gently squeezed her mother's hand. "Don't worry, Mother. Besides, wouldn't it be too much trouble for Aunt to teach me personally? I would feel terrible." Her stepfather explained that his sister would only be teaching her basic etiquette and deportment. Other subjects would be handled by professional tutors. Just as in her past life, her stepfather had hired a completely different set of tutors for her to avoid any overlap with Luina's, ensuring she wouldn't feel at a disadvantage. To express her gratitude, the girl ran to her stepfather's side and kissed his cheek. "I'd be lost without you, Papa." Sisai's slightly common display of affection caught her stepfather off guard, but he quickly burst into laughter. "While that's not quite how a noble lady should behave, it is very cute." Sisai knew all the rules of etiquette, but at that moment she pretended to be just as clueless, implying that she, like Luina, was a prodigy with limitless potential. Her debut was still a year away. She could learn the perfect manners of a lady from her aunt, but the art of being an exceptional woman, one who outshone all others, was not something she could learn in the stuffy circles of the nobility. She needed something more, an alluring, mysterious quality, a charm as secretive and dangerous as the night sky, one that inspired an almost instinctual devotion, an absolutely bewitching power that would make people risk everything for her. If it meant bringing down Luina, she would learn from anyone, even someone filthy, low-class, and despised by all. Just as she was pondering this, she encountered Theodore Vitrace in the park. He had his arm around a woman, their behavior bordering on flirtatious. His clothes were disheveled, his eyes hazy with drink. Sisai hadn't expected to see this debauched side of him. He gave her a slight nod. "My apologies for my drunken state." The man tried to stand but stumbled, falling back onto the bench. The woman he had been laughing with was dressed in a low-cut gown, both sexy and beautiful. Her fiery reddish-brown hair perfectly complemented the flirtatious glint in her eyes. From the way she supported Theodore and the glimpses of her pale skin, it was clear she was a woman of captivating allure. She pressed herself shamelessly against Theodore while waiting for him to introduce her, even flashing Sisai a smile that felt like a challenge. Sisai quickly dismissed Theodore's greeting. "I'll wait for you to be more presentable before we exchange pleasantries." As she was about to leave, Theodore suddenly grabbed her hand. "Stay and chat for a bit. It'll be fun. Periwinkle can keep you entertained." Hearing this, the woman playfully punched his chest with a pout. "Oh, you haven't even properly introduced me, and you're already asking me to entertain someone. What will this young lady think of me?" "You're terrible. I'd rather go back to the shop than be treated this way. I turned away several clients for you, you know." With that, she looked at Sisai directly. The hints were clear enough to reveal her profession as a courtesan. She surely expected Sisai to look at her with contempt and walk away. After all, a typical noble lady couldn't even stand to be in the same room as a prostitute. To the world, even a rotting rat in a gutter was cleaner than them. They were nothing more than pieces of meat hanging in a butcher's shop, cheap cuts that had been sampled by countless men. Periwinkle probably understood this and had no desire to speak with her. The problem was, Sisai was not a typical young lady bound by noble conventions. She sat down and looked at Periwinkle without flinching. How surprising. The young lady is actually willing to sit here. "What did you expect? For me to shriek and run away? Oh dear, you seem to have forgotten that you were the one who invited me to sit." "You poor thing. I can only hope you sober up soon." Periwinkle's eyes were fixed on her lips, as if waiting for an answer, her face already alight with amusement. Though she found it funny, Sisai managed to restrain herself. "Do I need a reason to sit down? Let's just say I felt like it." "I'm more curious about what possessed you to grab a lady's hand. Unless you intended to insult me, you should apologize immediately." Theodore of House Vitrace offers you his sincerest apologies. It lacks sincerity, but I suppose I can accept it. "Very well, I forgive you. All praise the benevolence of House Wiswarts. She may be unpleasant, but her voice is truly beautiful. In that case, the one of a lower station should offer her greetings first." Periwinkle curtsied. "A pleasure to meet you. My name is Periwinkle." Sisai responded in a cool tone. "Don't get too close." Periwinkle paid her rudeness no mind, instead giggling and shuffling back as if teasing a cat. In her eyes, Sisai was probably just a reckless girl who had just entered the world of nobility and was already trying to act like she owned the place. Sisai asked her what kind of lotion she used, pretending that her noble pride made it difficult to ask directly, instead feigning a casual curiosity. The woman said she couldn't remember the name. "If you're curious, you should stop by the shop sometime." "It's a shop for men. Why would I go there? If you were to come, my lady, the women in the shop would flock to you." They wouldn't even notice the men behind them, myself included. Her expression was full of playful delight, purely for her own amusement. When you're troubled, it's nice to just let your worries float away with the current. A predictable current doesn't always bring comfort. Only dead fish go with the flow. It sounds like you want to swim against the current. So what will you do, you who would turn the tide of fate? Is that an invitation to join this game? Let's see which one of us can truly turn the tables. They used flower petals as chips and questions and promises as stakes. After each round, the loser went all in, adding a dramatic flair to the game. Bets made before folding didn't count. At the start, each player received leaves of 3 different colors and could only pay with their own leaves. Once a color was lost, it couldn't be regained. You had to win leaves from your opponent. For every 10 points won from an opponent, you could ask 1 question. That meant winning a round allowed for 2 questions. 90 points earned you a request, and 130 points earned you a binding promise. In the first round, Sisai won with a better pair. She asked her first question. "Of all the companions he could have chosen, why did Theodore choose you?" In the past, some self-proclaimed playboys would bring women who weren't their wives out and about, causing quite a stir. But a courtesan is different. We are people who can connect on a deeper level, something between a high-class prostitute and a lover. Not many people can see into the human heart, but Periwinkle can. What are people hiding, and what is it that tortures them? They want to hide themselves and yet reveal themselves at the same time. I can accept this complex part of human nature. That's why clients come to me. So how did you uncover this secret? You can sense it even if people don't say it outright. Some talk too much, some too little. The way one hides a secret is very important. To accept complexity is to not try and define everything completely. Just watch. Currently, Sis-I had 85 points and Periwinkle had 62. In the next round, Sis-I chose to fold, bringing them both to 85 points. Both were now just 5 points away from 90. In the final round, Periwinkle raised by 5 points, but Sis-I folded again. Running away at the last minute seems a bit cowardly, especially since she was the one who eagerly suggested this game, only to end up with fewer points than me. Because there's no need to take unnecessary risks for someone who can't help me in the slightest. Periwinkle smiled. To think it would end so boringly. Sis-I intended to pay 3 points to end the game. However, the woman told her not to cheat and to follow the rules. The young lady needs to pay 3 points, but she has no 1-point yellow petals. So, if Periwinkle gets rid of her 1-point yellow petals, she wins. To manipulate the game, Sis-I had kept her in until the final round, but because of the color rule, she had forgotten about the petal count. If she wanted to fold, she would have to pay with a 5-point orange-yellow petal. But that would give Periwinkle 90 points, earning her a limited promise. This had now become a game with a request on the line. Sis-I didn't hesitate for long. She let out a soft laugh. Final round, all in. She didn't know when she had been drawn into this trap, but it didn't seem like the right time to back out. Sis-I had to admit she had underestimated Periwinkle. Under her makeup, her skin looked young, and her eyes, hazy from the wine, showed no hint of sharpness. Periwinkle, you should know when to stop. Sometimes being stubborn costs you more in the end. So Sis-I raised by another 3 points. It seems the young lady thinks she's in control. But sometimes a conviction that is too firm can blind you to the situation. People assume I'm just a greenhorn with no social experience. Don't be so quick to think you figured me out. Because people will trust their own judgment and let their guard down. Periwinkle raised to 6 points. Now 4 community cards were dealt. After seeing the queen, Sis-I knew her hand was the strongest. She raised again by 3 points. Periwinkle, unperturbed, called. The pot was now 34 points. The winner's score would be 119. With just 11 more points, the winner would reach 130. The only hand that could beat Periwinkle's was a 2-card heart flush, but that was unrealistic. There were already 3 hearts on the table. It was hard to say since she herself was holding 2 queens. Could Periwinkle really have another queen? You won't get to me. But my lady, how could the words of someone like me affect you? Or is it that you're not so sure yourself? I see through your bluff. You're just trying to test me. How can you call it a test? I'm merely a mirror, reflecting what the other person possesses. If that's fear, then it's a feeling the young lady is already well acquainted with. Sis-I couldn't understand how she could be so calm. There are some things you can never control. Periwinkle laughed. Is that so? What I'm sure of is that the queen and hearts are always on my side. A straight flush, 9-10, jack, queen, king. If that was her hand, Sis-I had definitely lost. What are you doing? It's your turn to bet. Weren't you the one who wanted to end this quickly? Sissy suspected she might be cheating, but she hadn't noticed anything unusual. My lady, do you have any proof? You inspected the cards and you shuffled them in the first round. Sis-I hadn't seen her switch the cards. Her hands had never gone under the table during the game, and her sleeves were too short to hide anything. Even if she had cheated, she wouldn't have been foolish enough to get caught. It was so deliberate that it seemed suspicious, but perhaps that was the point. She had only said that the queen and hearts were on her side. Despite her doubts, it was foolish to argue against cold logic with a baseless feeling. She had to continue the game. If this is all a coincidence, then I should call just to see your hand. She raised by 3 points. The pot was now 37, and the winner's score would be 122. It was risky. If Periwinkle's card was a heart, she could win with a straight flush. If it was the ace of hearts, it would be a royal flush. A 1 in 1,000 chance. Could that really happen in real life? I wonder if you have the means to fulfill a request from a count's daughter. I'm not a kind person, you know. Don't try to trick me. She thought that after saying this, the other woman would fold. But Periwinkle instead woke the man beside her. Wake up, Theodore. You need to be a witness for this game. No one will believe I have a pact with a count's daughter if it's just my word. She raised by 6 points. The pot was now 43, and the winner's score would be 128. If she called now, the winner would have 131. If she folded, the winner would have 122. If she called, the winner would get 130 points, and a promise backed by a nobleman. If she folded, she would have to grant Periwinkle's request. Sisai couldn't read the woman's expression at all. Waking the man up as a witness, was she that confident she would win? Was her hand really better? Sisai let out a breath and finally chose to fold. I will grant your request. Periwinkle, what kind of hand do you have to be so bold? When the woman revealed two useless, unpaired cards, Sisai was stunned. You challenged me with a hand like that? Going against the current isn't just about brute force. You follow the rhythm, find your direction, and go with the flow. Once you find an opening, you accelerate and turn the tables. Does that answer your question? Sisai smiled slightly. State your request. My lady, do you know how lonely this life is? The people who whisper words of love in the night become so heartless once they get what they want. They treat me as if I never existed. I'm tired of being ignored, so my lady, for just one moment, please don't ignore me. That is my request. As their eyes met, Sisai saw a light in them. Even though she had lost, she didn't feel unhappy. After the game, Sisai realized that Periwinkle had probably been planning to use her curiosity from the moment she sat down. The woman pursued her. If you have any secret stories you want to tell but can't, you can come and find me later. Sisai didn't look back. I will never come looking for you. Oh my, that sounds like you want me to come and find you. Sisai glared at her. I won't waste any more time on this. Don't follow me. The woman waved cheerfully. Then take care. It was a pleasure to meet you today. To lure someone into a trap before they even realize it. To seem eager to provide answers while actually planting more questions. Yes, that was it. That was one side of the ideal person she wanted to become. Theodore, who had been pretending to be drunk, was now a completely different person. You won. Did you switch the cards? Periwinkle let out a long breath. You know my skills are no match for yours, master. It was just luck. I'm quite handsome, aren't I? I would never think of cheating in front of that young lady. I'm so curious, master. Why did you want me to approach her? She may be from House Wisworts now, but she carries herself more like a highborn lady than any I've ever seen. She has the pride of a noble, a graceful demeanor, and a stronger sense of self-respect than anyone. Even when she loses, she shows no shame. A typical person of high rank would have thrown a tantrum out of anger and embarrassment, or claimed that a bet with a commoner was invalid. But Sisai is special. I can't say she's a righteous person, but she seems to have a soft side to her. A girl who was living in a southern village just a few days ago, where did she learn to play poker? From the very beginning, she was able to point out loopholes in the rules, and the way she played showed she was an expert. It's no surprise she lost to me, someone who's been in the gambling dens for a decade. She pretended to be provoked and agreed to the game, clearly curious about either you or me. After a brief test, she withdrew before things got out of hand. For some reason, she seemed to tolerate my insolence. And when she realized she had lost, she accepted the outcome calmly, as if she would take full responsibility. She even agreed to my vague request and then left with her head held high. Isn't her pride wounded? She was so composed it almost felt like I was the one who lost. Throughout the game, she was so calm it made me wonder if my words had affected her at all. And she's not even an adult yet, to not get angry when provoked, to be so poised. She has a maturity far beyond her years. It's the way of a true noble. When we first met, Theodore offered a hand kiss. However, she responded by taking off her hat like a man. A gentleman should take a lady's right hand with his right hand for a proper hand kiss. And a lady's hat is considered part of her attire. She shouldn't remove it outdoors. She must not have been learning etiquette for long, but with her adaptability and courage, once she gains more experience, she could shake the entire social circle. It seems you had already noticed how special she is, master. Theodore didn't answer. Under his gaze, Periwinkle fell silent. But there's something strange. Sisai seemed to want to imitate the way I handle my clients. She seemed to want to commit my every move to memory, her gaze almost one of admiration. That's why she didn't refuse my invitation, but I'm not sure. Even when I tried to entice her to meet again, she didn't take the bait. Theodore said, Of course. Even if she had a fleeting interest in you, you are not important enough for her to pursue at the cost of her dignity. I see. That's why she could walk away from me so easily. You are truly remarkable. Theodore reached out and stroked her head, his attitude like that of a master petting his animal, a touch of affection, but with a clear boundary. You came all this way, and the first thing you ask is for me to entertain a young lady. It's all right. Among the many women who are used as tools, I am the only one whose hair you stroke so gently. It has been that way for a long, long time. The street was as noisy as ever, the smell of fish thick in the air. People bustled about, buying and selling. Periwinkle was being sold to a gambling den by her parents. They dragged her along, ignoring her pleas. She couldn't remember if anyone had been watching her. What's going to happen to me now? Curious? You'll find out when we get there. A girl not even 11. Let's have a look at her. The next second, the man's throat was pierced, and he collapsed beside Periwinkle in a heap of despair. All the girl remembered from that day was the sight of your eyes, brighter than the sun against the backdrop of the crashing waves. Those eyes had not looked away. In the place the man took her, she learned some strange things with the other children. In her spare time, she would watch the adults gamble. We called our savior Master. One day, she mustered the courage to offer a suggestion in an adults card game, laying out a winning combination. What was your name again? The girl excitedly told him her name. You're a smart one. After that day, she had her own room. Sometimes she accompanied the master on his outings. It was a sweltering time. People called the master father. Your families will surely return. I will pray to God for them. On that day, God will defeat Leviathan with his mighty sharp sword, punish that cunning serpent, and slay the monster in the sea. On their journeys, the servants grew tired of the alchemical dealings and resented taking orders from a man not yet 30. Periwinkle sensed the tense atmosphere. The next moment, the horse was stuck in the sand. The master turned back and advised, "Take small steps on the sand." Then he helped her pull the rope. At that very moment, fireworks lit up the sky. Driven by some impulse, the master reached for her, tilted her chin towards him, held her tight, and kissed her. She didn't believe in God, but that day she prayed. She prayed that things could stay as they were. But in her room, she said the words she shouldn't have. I love you. When the master stroked her gently with a look only she could understand, she wasn't afraid, even when she remembered the rumors of those who defied him being thrown into the sea, their bodies turning into corpses. From now on, you will work as a prostitute. Periwinkle was confused. Is there something wrong with the ledgers I kept? Periwinkle, this is for your own good. It's much easier than what you've been doing. All you have to do is look pretty and enjoy the attention of men. When she tried to argue, the man kissed her forehead. I need you, Periwinkle. I love you. If it weren't for those 3 words, she would have bitten her tongue off. By wallowing in the mud, she could gather information and funds. If she kept this up, surely she would hear the word love again. Because she was special to him, because only she could understand that look in his eyes. Periwinkle, go and approach the young lady of House Wiswarts. She may be of use to my great cause. Hearing this, Periwinkle trembled with excitement. Ah, master, rest assured, I will help you achieve your grand design. I will shape Sisai Wiswarts into your most powerful asset. After returning to the estate, Sisai planned to practice falconry, but the family's falconers were all away. Among birds of prey, the falcon was the most elegant and free, the very embodiment of the wild. To hold that wildness in the palm of your hand was a symbol of power. Falconry was a quintessential upper-class activity, a gathering place for nobles who had received the proper education and could handle the birds with ease. In her past life, Sisai had gotten tangled in a falcon's wings, humiliating herself at a gathering. A man had approached her then. I thought you'd be the type to cause trouble. Sisai had no desire to speak with him. She didn't even need to know who he was. He was just another nobody trying to use her to get close to the Count's family. But the man had said, I hear they call you the Viper. With a name like that, shouldn't you be fighting back, if only to clear your name? After that, Sisai had practiced falconry relentlessly. Back then, she had been driven by resentment, but now her purpose was different. The nobles who gathered at the hunting grounds would one day become the ruling powers of the empire. If she wanted to build a faction, the falconry meet, where alliances had not yet been formed, was the perfect place. The falcon she had trained should still be here. It looked like she would have to practice on her own. If she didn't want to attract attention, she needed a place that was both spacious enough for the falcon to fly freely and enclosed. But the fountain garden in that location didn't used to have glass walls, did it? It had been dismantled because Celia had spread the story of their fateful love everywhere. Lowena had been buying a welcome gift for her aunt and had also purchased an expensive brooch for Halberd, but she had been too shy to give it to him. Celia, trying to help Lowena, had secretly summoned Halberd. Coincidentally, an old chandelier in the garden had suddenly fallen, and Halberd had appeared like a prince to save Lowena. After that, Celia's status had risen, and that was how Sisai had come to know Halberd. In any case, it had nothing to do with her now. Wait a minute. Celia was currently locked in the Kupsari. So who would summon Halberd? The possibility that Lowena might die today because of her actions sent a jolt through Sisai. Without a second thought, she burst out of her room. Marie, get Sir Halberd to the greenhouse garden, quickly. No matter what, this was not the ending she wanted. As she ran, all she could think was that by changing her actions, she might have caused Lowena's death. She picked up her pace. No, absolutely not. As the chandelier fell, Lowena looked up at the ceiling, helpless. Suddenly, a hand pushed her out of the way, and they both tumbled onto the lawn. Lowena seemed too scared to breathe. The only sounds her sister's ragged gasps and the hands shielding her head. Just then, Halberd arrived. Sisai pushed herself up. Are you hurt anywhere? Lowena stared at her sister. That was so cool. Little did she know, Sisai had only one thought in her mind. If she's going to die, I'll be the one to kill her. Seeing that terrifying expression, a chill ran down Lowena's spine. Sister, your face looked a little scary just now. Sisai slowly helped her up. Did it? You must have seen wrong. The sisters looked at each other and smiled. I suppose so. Halberd strode forward. My lady, are you all right? Perfect timing. Marie said she would fetch a doctor and the other servants. People would probably praise her for her good deed, a story about how the new young lady had selflessly saved Lady Lowena. It would help turn public opinion in her favor. Though she thought this, she put on a troubled expression. Marie, I don't want to make a big deal out of this. Our aunt is arriving tomorrow. We can't have a commotion. Just tell the butler to clean this up for now. We can inform the count when he returns. Are you sure? This is a huge deal. When Marie pressed her, Sisai told her not to tell anyone else. Sir Halberd, please help Lowena to her personal maid and have a doctor see her. Halberd was full of concern. Lady Sisai needs to see a doctor as well. I'll go with Marie after I speak with the butler. Aren't you coming with us, sister? Someone has to take care of the ruined garden. You're strong, right, Lowena? With that, she kissed her cheek. Encouraged, Lowena smiled brightly. I'll be sure to see the doctor. Sisai thought to herself, what's there to smile about? I want to rip that smile off your face. Only after helping Lowena up did Halberd realize that she was barely hurt. The one who had taken the real impact was Lady Sisai. Looking at her slender, obviously swollen wrist. Looking at her ankle, scraped raw by her high heels. The man felt he had made a foolish judgment. Sisai turned to leave. Halberd, one witness is enough. This glass greenhouse was a gift from the royal family, a reward for the family's great success in their port business, and a symbol of their good fortune and friendly relations with the crown. If something went wrong, her stepfather would surely want to keep it quiet. But in her past life, Celia had run around like a fool, trumpeting the heroic tale, and the story had spread like wildfire, impossible to contain. The royal family was displeased with the poor management, and in the end, even the glass walls were ordered to be dismantled. In the past, the Count had never spared any expense on her, but because of her own lack of knowledge and improper conduct, she had never been able to secure her footing in the family. The butler rushed over, concerned for Sisai. She assured him she was fine. For now, only you know about this. With an honored guest arriving soon, I don't want to trouble too many people. And besides, this is a garden that must not be damaged, isn't it? The butler paused for a moment, then answered, yes. A reprimand for his negligence would have been expected. For her to try and clean up this mess to protect the family's reputation, he was truly indebted to this young lady. Thank you for your understanding. We will have this cleaned up by this afternoon. Is there anything you need? In that case, may I take a walk in the garden by myself tonight? The butler would understand what by myself meant. Besides, she didn't want to participate in the hunting activities anyway, so it was best to keep this low profile. Hey, you remember your sister? This was a rare moment of relaxation for Sisai. Even if this is the first time you've seen me in this life, don't you have some animal instinct? The problem was her injured ankle. For a moment, she lost her footing. As the rope in her hand slipped, the falcon was pulled sharply. In its fright, it flew straight at Sisai. The bird had mistaken it for a signal to descend, but it was coming down too fast. The moment before impact, Halberd wrapped his arms around Sisai, his own arm providing a place for the falcon to land. "Are you hurt, Lady Sisai?" Held tightly in his arms, Sisai forgot to breathe. The man whispered, "Breathe slowly." He gradually loosened his grip and gently patted her back until her color returned. But then she pushed him away. "Thank you, I'm not hurt. But what are you doing here?" The man explained that he was on duty at 9:30. Perhaps because he had been a witness during the day, he had been assigned to the interior. Seeing the startling wound on the man's arm, Sisai immediately apologized. "I'm so sorry, Halberd. You were injured because of me. That's so much blood. This is terrible." Halberd reassured her gently. "It's all right, my lady." What if word got out that Halberd was injured? People would surely say, "That troublemaker has hurt someone again, and the Count's head knight no less." "I'm sorry, how can I repay you?" Halberd spoke again in that gentle voice. "I came here to make sure you weren't hurt. As long as you are safe, we can pretend today never happened. The important thing is, I'm truly fine." Sisai thanked him, but her heart was still heavy. To have to scheme and use even the person she liked, she was truly pathetic. Halberd tried to lighten the mood. "I may be fine now, but I might not be able to get up tomorrow." Sisai stared at him for 2 seconds, stunned. Was he joking with her? It was out of character, but she couldn't help but be amused by his awkward attempt. "That's not funny at all," she said, smiling. Halberd looked away, embarrassed. "I suppose I don't have much talent for it." Fortunately, Sisai had brought some medical supplies just in case. She carefully bandaged Halberd's arm, an interaction they had never had in her past life. "Did you cross the fountain to get here?" The man said it would have been too slow to go around, then quickly added, "I'll be careful not to get your dress wet. It's all right if it gets wet. Your leather boots must be heavy, though." The man replied, "They're much lighter than my armor. Your armor must be heavy then." "You get used to it. It gets a bit hot in the summer, but proper attire is part of the duty." Halberd's armor was less for training and more a symbol of the family's power. The mere fact that they had a war hero in their service elevated the family's status. He was the son of a swordmaster, and great things had been expected of him from a young age, but no one had expected him to surpass his own father at just 16. It started with the siege of Charlotteheim. He wasn't even an adult yet, but he was already being called a hero. His fame spread to the capital, and he even received an offer from the royal family, but Llewellyn Halberd had declined. He refused the invitation because the Halberd family had a long tradition of serving the Wiswarts family, and he chose to honor his pact with his lord. And so Halberd earned the name, the Sapphire Knight. He was a stubborn man. That was why the old Sisai had loved him. Halberd asked her a question. "Why did you call me to the garden this afternoon?" Marie had asked her too. How could she have known, as if she could see the future? Sisai had given her an answer. "Lowena invited me for afternoon tea yesterday. She said she wanted to buy a gift for Halberd, but she came down with a fever, so I couldn't go with her. When I woke up from a nap, I realized she was probably still there, so I had you called. I only told you because I wanted to thank you for saving me, but it feels like I've revealed a secret between girls and I feel bad about it. So could you keep it a secret for me?" "Yes, if that is your command." Then he asked a question that stunned her. "Is your fever gone?" "What? You said you were sick, didn't you?" She thought he would be concerned about the gift Lowena never got to give him. "I'm fine now." "You still seem to have a fever." With that, the man raised his hand, unable to stop himself from leaning closer. "Please forgive my impertinence." He gently rested the back of his hand on Sisai's forehead, his touch careful yet firm, his eyes full of deep affection and loyalty. To Sisai, it felt like a dream. This chance encounter, this conversation, his unwavering gaze, it was all like a dream. The warmth of his hand was so delightful it made her heart leap, which only made her angrier. Why was he only showing her this side of himself in this life? The old Halberd's eyes had always been on Lowena. Her pride had been crushed countless times. So please don't try to sway her with this cheap pity. Sisai told the man, "Don't. I don't need this kind of attention." Halberd realized he had overstepped. Sisai knew very well that this man had a soft spot for pitiful people. Halberd withdrew his hand and apologized sincerely. "I'm sorry, my lady." Sissy didn't want his apology. She hated the way he looked when he apologized. But the truly tragic thing was, It was that very pity that had driven her into a crazed, one-sided love, and it was that same pity that now made her heart race. As she turned to leave, Halberd didn't try to stop her. He only said, "I'm on indoor security every Friday night. You can find me if you need anything." Back in her room, Sisai changed into her nightgown and went to find her mother. "Can't sleep? I just missed you." With that, she walked to the bed and sat down beside her mother. "We see each other every day, and you still miss me." Sisai took her mother's hand like a child. "It's strange, but I feel like I've just returned from a long journey. Even looking at you now, I still miss you." Her mother laughed. "Goodness, why are you suddenly acting so grown up?" Her mother had recently begun to carry herself like the mistress of a noble house. The next moment, she put on a stern face, mimicking her mother's demeanor from earlier that day. "Wipe down the windowsill until it's spotless, not a speck of dust." The head maid, Margot, had been keeping a low profile because of her, which had helped her mother establish her authority. But the question was, how long would this last? "I'm so worried, Mother. I don't know if I can do a good job in front of your aunt. To be honest, I'm so scared I want to run away." Sisai immediately shot that down. "No!" She jumped to her feet and pointed at the door, her voice serious. "Pack your bags, we'll escape tonight." Her mother burst out laughing. "We're old pros at running away, aren't we? If things get too bad, we'll just run. If you really can't take it anymore, you have to take me with you." Her mother was confused. "What are you talking about, child? Promise me now!" In that moment, she seemed to see the deepest, most vulnerable part of her daughter. Without another word, she linked pinkies with her. "Of course we'll go together, just like we did back then." The next morning, 3 hours before her aunt's arrival, Sisai had her maid lace her corset as tightly as possible. She skipped breakfast, having only a cup of coffee. For a young lady, a slender waist was paramount. She was already feeling a little dizzy. To catch the eye of that demon, she had to be constrained, as if by shackles. It was Lady Ravelier who had told her, when she had been eating heartily, "When you feel like you're going to faint, just have a small piece of cheese." For someone so demanding about the smallest details, how could she possibly be sympathetic about a swollen ankle? In short, high heels were a must. In her past life, she had been insulted and belittled by her. She hadn't had enough time to practice her dancing, complete her studies, and learn etiquette all at once. The lady had berated her for making endless excuses. Life is not easy for anyone. It's a constant flurry of unexpected events. Sometimes you feel unwell, the weather turns bad, or you have to make time for someone else's wedding or funeral. These unavoidable things happen constantly as long as you're alive. But it is only when you can still present a polished version of yourself in the midst of this chaos, without letting others see your flaws, that people will accept you as a member of society. Even if you try your best, you can't do it on willpower alone. If your willpower is not enough, then you must borrow the will of others to succeed. Since your life has been changed, you must work hard. Show some respect for the people who are trying to help you. She was right, respect? If she really wanted to help, she should have started by getting rid of that look in her eyes, that look that said she was looking at a piece of trash. You're so far behind, you should at least show some willingness to learn. But no, all you can think about is men. What did you learn from your parents? Did your mother only teach you how to seduce men? Sisai had finally snapped. "Shut up, you crazy woman. Do you have any idea how my mother lived for my sake? Why is it that your brother was just a simple man who lost his way, but my mother is treated like a whore? How laughable. You have no respect for other women and you want to be a mother? That's why your own child suffocated from fear of you, cold and emotionless like a stone. The child you finally managed to conceive, you ended up miscarrying. A body no better than a stone doll." The moment she said it, her aunt's face had twisted in agony. Seeing it, she had burst out laughing. She thought she would have been satisfied for days, but she felt no joy at all. After that outburst, her aunt had cut off all contact with the family, not even sending a single letter until her stepfather's death. And now, to be primping and preening from dawn to make a good impression on that woman? Was there anything more ironic? Sisai laughed at herself. The thought of the contempt and humiliation that awaited her made her vision go dark. Obedience was too difficult for her, and walking the tightrope between arrogance and submission would be no easy feat. Could she really restrain herself from saying things like stone doll to her face? She could only hope her self-control would be as solid as a rock, even if her aunt insulted her mother in public. 2 servants escorted her to the ground floor, following behind her. Head maid Margot's suspension had only been lifted for 2 days, but their arrogance was already back. Their hostile glares were barely concealed. Because Tisai was from the south, they felt free to mock her in the northern dialect. Look at what she's wearing, you'd think she was going to a school. When welcoming a distinguished guest, you should dress splendidly like Lady Loena. She can't even read the room. She's just useless all around, and her posture is so sloppy. She's going to embarrass us all when the guest arrives, that idiot. Halfway through the sentence, Sisai stopped abruptly and shoved a decorative vase off its pedestal. The servants froze. Sisai said, "My hand slipped. Do you know where I'm from? Did you really think I wouldn't understand your northern dialect? Idiots?" The 2 were dumbfounded. How did she understand the northern dialect? Before they could process it, they were on their knees apologizing. Sisai gave them a final warning. "I don't want to hear you squeaking like rats. Get out of my sight. The next time I see you, I'll cut out your tongues." With that, she strode away. In reality, she hadn't understood a word they said. But in her past life, she had heard those same words every day, so she remembered them. Their insolent attitude and whispered conversations were predictable. A little prodding was all it took to make them tremble with fear. Her mother had tried several times to put away the baby-related items, but the head maid Margot must have been the one responsible. So that stupid vase deserved to be broken. Just then, a man walked toward her. "My lady, why are you here alone?" It was Sir Silpice, the knight's instructor. "If you don't mind, allow me to escort you to the front hall." In her past life, he had been a terrible person who unconditionally defended Loena, so she wasn't happy to see him. But her aunt would be arriving any minute. She couldn't refuse. Everything had to go smoothly. When she reached the front hall, Loena was already waiting, looking as radiant and annoying as ever. "Good morning, Sisai. I wanted to talk to you. Can we meet after lunch? This is your first time meeting Aunt, isn't it?" Sisai swallowed the bile rising in her throat and replied, "I'm looking forward to it. I wonder what she's like." Just then, the doors opened, and Lady Ravalier entered, looking exactly as she remembered. The emerald-handled cane she carried was as menacing as a knight's sword, and her noble aura was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, her skin pale but smooth, and her blue eyes were as cold as ice, inspiring an instinctual fear. The butler and the head maid bowed low. "We will ensure your stay is comfortable and pleasant." Lady Ravalier merely nodded, then straightened her back, completely ignoring the mistress of the house who had stepped forward to greet her, stripping her of all authority in front of the staff. "Welcome, sister. Was your journey comfortable?" The Count's greeting was met with a completely different demeanor. "Perfectly. Thank you for your concern." Seeing her aunt after so long, Loena was giddy with excitement. "Welcome, Aunt." She curtsied gracefully, her fingers delicately pinching the fabric of her skirt. As expected of Lady Loena, Lady Ravalier even offered a faint smile. "Yes, my lovely little songbird. Have you been well?" "Yes. I've missed you so much." Then her gaze shifted to the left. "You must be Sisai." Sisai stepped forward and curtsied. Her ankle was still injured from the chandelier incident. The lady was meticulous about etiquette. If she couldn't do it perfectly, it was better not to do it at all. The butler, who had just been thinking this, was rendered speechless. The angle of her bow, the arc of her arms, the number of fingers holding her skirt, and even the timing of her straightening up were all perfectly calculated. "Greetings, Aunt." At that moment, everyone seemed to hold their breath in unison. When she straightened up and met her gaze, Lady Ravalier was looking at her with an appraising expression. Not entirely foolish, I see. In response to what was the highest praise she could offer, Sisai beamed. "You flatter me." Lady Ravalier was like a beast, not a roaring lion, but a graceful leopard, stalking its prey in the tall grass. Her sharp, all-seeing eyes were filled with a deep hunger for her quarry. Starving, she carefully assessed which one would provide a better meal. On the way to the dining hall, protocol dictated that the Count, as the head of the family, would walk last. The unmarried daughters would follow quietly behind the lady, while the mistress of the house would guide the guest at her side. Loena, who had naturally taken the spot next to her aunt, was infuriating. And by ignoring her mother's greeting in front of the servants, this elder was undermining the mistress's authority, a behavior that would inevitably lead the staff to disrespect her as well. Sissy whispered to her mother. Remember what we talked about last night? If things get too bad, we'll run. So don't lose your confidence. Yes, if it comes to it, we'll just leave. And what her mother needed most right now was comfort. Tell me I can do this. Sissy took her mother's hand and said with conviction, You've always done a wonderful job. How could she not feel for this woman who had endured everything for her? In the past, her mother had worked day and night to buy her daughter a good pair of shoes so she could go anywhere she wanted. And so, becoming her mother's shield and standing up to Lady Ravaliere felt like Sissy's destiny. The meal with the lady was a drab affair. Even the talkative Loena was silent, as if in isolation. The maids were extra careful today, serving the dishes with light steps, the clinking of silverware almost inaudible. It was only when dessert was served that people began to speak. However, her mother was so tense she seemed to have forgotten how to breathe. But the test was not over. She singled out Sissy, asking how much she knew about the Wisworts family's coastal enterprise. The Count tried to intervene. Business matters are a bit too advanced for the children. The lady was not deterred. How can the children not know about the very foundation of this family? I want to hear their opinions. Loena, of course, tried to jump in. I have some thoughts on the recent coastal development, but her aunt cut her off. Child, I know you are well informed, but I asked your sister first, did I not? We must observe the proper order. Her blatant favoritism made her stepfather shift uncomfortably in his seat. It seemed her interest had completely shifted to the children. Throughout the meal, she had been staring at Sissy without trying to hide it. The child's table manners are flawless, but even if she is intelligent, this is a difficult topic. Well, Sissy, tell me what you know. Sissy didn't panic. She smiled as if she had been waiting for this moment. Tell me, what do you know about the family's coastal enterprise? Her stepfather looked worried. Even if she was smart, business was a complex subject. But Sissy simply smiled and began to speak, citing chapters and even specific articles from the family archives. And the holy Leviathan shall slay the monster in the sea. The abyss symbolizes the sea of chaos, and Leviathan is the monster that dwells within it. In that chaotic sea, there have always been rumors of people disappearing without a trace, and people believed it was the work of a sea monster. But in reality, it was because the winds were fierce, the currents unpredictable, and the waters were filled with hidden reefs and cliffs, leading to frequent shipwrecks. Its unique geographical location also made it difficult to govern, and crime was rampant. People projected all these dangers onto the monster Leviathan. While it's hard to explain everything as a social defense mechanism, going deeper into that would be off-topic. At that time, this coast was beyond the reach of the central government. This western sea had been in a state of decay for a long time, unable to heal itself. But the Wisworts family believed that this coast, a sea that should not be abandoned out of fear, was a territory that must be reclaimed and given a new name. The primary responsibility and cost would be borne by the Wisworts family. This was to open a path for the sea and restore order to the land. This decision had a ripple effect throughout the empire, changing people's perception of noble responsibility. The glass greenhouse garden gifted by the royal family was a clear signal of their approval. And so, with the attention and efforts of many, the sea finally regained its original symbolism. It became a place of both peace and abyss, now known as Charlotteheim. Therefore, the coastal project is not just a simple urban redevelopment, it is the act of redeeming the coast from Leviathan and reclaiming it for humanity. When she finished, the room was stunned. Her mother couldn't believe it. She had barely started her etiquette lessons. When had she learned all this? Her aunt pressed on. And how exactly were the shipping lanes cleared? But Sissy stopped there. I'm afraid I haven't yet learned the specific details. I am truly ashamed. This was something she had studied to death in her past life. Of course she knew. But overanalyzing would make it seem like she had memorized a script. A country bumpkin who had grown up on the edge of the desert and had only been a young lady for 2 weeks, how could she possibly know about a distant Western Sea development project? To be an expert would be unnatural. The first question had been a general, tell me what you know. What the lady really wanted to confirm was her sincerity, her willingness to learn. So the elegance she had displayed earlier was just the result of her desperate efforts to not dishonor the family name. By only revealing the knowledge she could have realistically acquired on her own, she was more likely to please Lady Ravaliere. It seems you are worth teaching. Even though you've mainly studied deportment, this is not something you can fake in a short time. Insight, a desire to learn, and passion. I don't know if it was intentional, but your choice of words is also quite measured. Her mother looked at her daughter with pride, to receive such a compliment from the notoriously harsh lady. You flatter me. You must simply have a favorable impression of me to see me in such a light. Hearing this, her aunt frowned. What makes you so certain that my impression of you is favorable? Sisai's smile was radiant. If you didn't like someone, how could you only see their good qualities? You must find me agreeable and charming to offer such high praise. The girl's response silenced everyone. Her mother nearly fainted from shock, her stepfather swallowed hard, and even Lowena was dumbfounded. In the tense, charged atmosphere, her aunt's face was cold as she demanded, "When did I ever say such a thing?" Sisai's smile never wavered. She savored the perfect amount of tension, not shying away from that intense scrutiny. After a moment, a hint of a smile played on Lady Ravalier's lips as she tossed a single sentence at her. "You're a bold one, aren't you, you little thing?" Sisai feigned a mix of alarm and delight, accepting the compliment with a flourish. "Thank you so much, Aunt." The little snake feigned submission, coiling around the leg of the beast as if in flattery. But the beast, unaware that it was a venomous viper, seemed amused and let its guard down. Poor, proud leopard. By the time the snake has devoured it completely, it will be too late for regrets. Meanwhile, in a dark room, a man was pleading for his life. "Please, spare me." A knight named Gia spoke. "Should I kill him, Itty?" The drug he put in the incense burner is unusual. The man tried to defend himself, to make excuses. Jalak gave him no chance, a swift elbow strike bringing him down. It's a combination not even recorded in herbology. Separately, they are common herbs, but together they form a potent poison. It doesn't act immediately, but it causes the body to rot slowly. If I hadn't been away on the expedition, I might have ended up like His Majesty. The Crown Prince's lips curled into a smile. I thought we'd have some peace, but it seems they're playing games behind my back. Lock him up on other charges for now and see how they react. All these vague mysteries are finally starting to make sense. But she is my mother, after all. How could I refuse my son's earnest plea? I've been indulging in such unrealistic fantasies. It seems my cold-blooded mother won't be satisfied until she sees blood. Jala was silent for a moment, then turned. Then we proceed as planned. As he was about to leave, his brother called out to him, "Mayor, don't be so cold to the ladies. The women at the palace are all complaining that you're too intimidating." Jala just frowned. He didn't see the need to feign interest in something as trivial as pleasure. "Mayor, I still prefer your hair long. Back then, you at least pretended to humor the young ladies. But to cut your hair for a woman, it's like you're in mourning. Speaking of which, I can't seem to forget that woman who jumped." Jallo's voice grew cold. "What are you trying to say?" Itty wisely backed off. All right. I just had a dream that helped me understand you. I dreamed a woman jumped from a terrace. The ending? It was gruesome, of course. Her head was smashed to pieces. You rarely see a woman die like that. But I've never seen eyes like that before. It was as if she was about to die, yet she was fighting to live, her eyes blazing like a wild animal's. Foolish, yet somehow pitiable. It felt like if I let my guard down for a second, she would have bitten me. Jallo turned and walked away. I don't have time to listen to stories about the women in your dreams. The Crown Prince gave a bitter smile. You're so heartless. I kind of want to be bitten by her, just to see if she'll come back to my dreams. Meanwhile, her aunt was speaking with Sisai. You have a cleverness your mother lacks, a patience beyond your years, and you know how to use your intelligence to please me. But how do you explain that naivete you try to show me? There is nothing more foolish than letting your intentions show in your eyes. So you must endure, and endure. Learn to hide your venom under your tongue. Everything needs to be corrected. If you are to become the daughter of a nobleman, you must remember these things.